that, it was a big afternoon. Wow. So there I was at around lunchtime, dying in the heat and humidity, right? I had done some epoxy work on the oars, which I'll show you when it's light tomorrow. I upgraded the 2 new oars I bought. That came out okay on the second pass. And then I set my mind to go ahead and scrape and varnish another section of the rail in the back, in the cockpit area, because I could do that while I was in the shade. Again, being right about middle of the day. So, I did that work, and it took a couple hours to scrape another 1.5 meters of rail, and it's ready to varnish. But I was just cleaning up my mess, and I was kind of thinking to myself, should I, got a boat going by, so should I, you can see him behind me, yeah, so I was asking myself, should I varnish today, because I thought it was going to rain. Even though there is no sign of rain in the sky, even though there is nothing on the radar, I knew that the winds had been coming out of the west all day, and when that's the case, usually we get those thunderstorms that come and get us in the evening. And just as I was thinking that, Jared comes by, but he brought a buddy of his named Brian, and those are 2 cool guys who live out here at Anchor with me. And we just got to chatting, and of course Jared had brought me a beer because he had pinched a beer yesterday or the day before, and he's not a mooch, so I'll give him a salute for that. He none of us out here are mooches, so anyway, so he came by to deliver a beer, and then we just got to talk, and then we each had a beer. So, and then we look to another boat, and we see Jeff, who's another guy, and Jeff has just launched his dinghy, and we saw him trying to start the engine, and this is really pretty funny, but it wouldn't start. And then we see him getting the oar out and trying to row it, and I mentioned just in the last episode, I think, what it's like trying to row an inflatable against the wind and against the current with just 1 oar, and he wasn't making any better progress than I made in Looper on that one day. So we decided to put down our beers, and we chugged them down, and we jumped in, I guess it was Brian's dinghy, to go charging after Jeff to save Jeff, and we did that. But the funny thing is, I didn't have this on camera. I admit I didn't do it, but the funniest thing I think I've seen in a week or a month or a year was watching Jeff hitting his oar on top of the outboard, so angry with it, and then he just threw his oar in the water, and that's when he realized it sank. So it was really funny in many ways. But so we got Jeff under tow and brought him over to Brian's boat, and we were just kind of bullshitting some more. And then that storm came, and we could see the rain, and at first it looked like it was tracking north, and it looked like it was going to fizzle. Excuse me, God, it's hot. And then I said, guys, I need to ride back to my boat because this rain's coming, and I left all the windows open. So I guess it was Brian who gave me a ride back, and he drove me back to my boat, and I jumped aboard and shook hands, and he went back to his boat to prepare for the rain. And within seconds of him leaving, it started to rain. And none of this was that horrible. Because I got the window shut, I even put a little dish or laundry detergent in one of the buckets, and I got my brush down, and I wanted to scrub the top side of the boat because it was very dirty from work I had done earlier this week. And so I had a great chance to get the boat cleaned, and I did that. And then I thought, heck, all this water coming down, I'll go ahead and shampoo my hair, which I did. And just as I was finishing shampooing, I was standing right here in this location in the cockpit, facing forward, and I was bending down, and when I was done with my shampooing, I looked this way, and damned if I don't see Michelle and Lionel's boat about just a few meters off my port beam, and they were dragging. The tide was outgoing, and the wind was this way, and they were going every bit of 2 knots, dragging. So I took a quick picture of it, which I'll show you here. Then I immediately got busy getting ready to launch my dinghy, and I had just untied the first couple of lines and was ready to drop it when I saw Jeff coming back with the dinghy that works now, and he saw the dragging boat, so he came alongside my boat, and I jumped in. I grabbed I got a text message out to Lionel and Michelle because they were out of the city at the moment, and said, hey, your boat's dragging, we're going to go see what we can do. So Jeff and I rowed the boat all the way down there. You see where that that dock is? It's hard to see this time of day. Yeah, where those bunch of poles are. Yeah, I was hoping we were going to drag close enough to that we could lasso one of the posts, although I thought that was a long shot. And we struggled, so we got lines ready to do that, and we were struggling to get the secondary anchor down, and that was a struggle. And we'll talk about lessons learned for this whole event later, but we drug all the way over there to where those boats are on moorings. So that's the mooring fleet over there. Those people pay all those boats, and you see the power boat in the foreground, that one right there, that's the one. And we finally got the second anchor to hold when we were about I don't know, 5 meters from that boat. I'm serious, not making that up. The ass end of Lionel and Michelle's boat was about 5 meters in front of that, almost to the side of it. And we finally got the thing to hold. And then we just kind of were trying to figure out how to start the engine, but I knew that I had to get inside the cabin somehow to start the engine. Yeah, so it's getting too dark to film now. Oh my God. Yeah, I guess I'll continue this tomorrow. Yeah, so I knew because I'd been aboard Lionel and Michelle's boat last year during the hurricane. We hurricaned together, and during Hurricane Nicole, we were part of that same fleet. So I had known those two, and they're really good folks. And Lionel is a guy who saved that boat that hit me. If you remember back to episode whatever it was, when I got hit by the guy during the hurricane, it was Lionel who jumped in his dinghy in the middle of the damn storm and went up there and saved this guy's neck. So knowing that he was the kind of guy to save other people's boats, I mean, Jeff and I did our absolute best to do something, and what we finally were successful doing was getting the second anchor to catch. Wow, what a day. I'm going to close this out because it's getting too dark to see my beautiful face anyway. That was a hell of a day. Went like, flew by, baby. So, but just now I just finished my shower, and the boat's all clean, and nobody died, and really it was a great day all in all. So, cheers everyone. Well, good morning. I'm standing up here on the bow. At least there's a breeze. It's pretty hot again today. It's going to be 95 degrees. That's pushing 30 degrees C, probably 28 or so. Either rate, I'm up here in the bow to talk about anchor. So the other day when that boat was dragging anchor, almost as if it had nothing down at all, honestly, it was making every bit of 2 knots past me, so you can see from the video. We went aboard and we tried to deploy the backup anchor. And so the question in terms of lesson learned, the open question is my anchor and my backup, are they prepared to quickly deploy should somebody else have to be aboard and drop a second hook? Let's take a look. So, here's where I have this, that's my backup anchor, that's my primary at the other end of that line, okay? The backup anchor is physically tied with just a kind of like a running hitch, one of my modified clove hitches really, and it's just tied to right here to the main barrel of the anchor, and that I think is pretty self-explanatory, and someone could cut it with a rope or a knife if they had to. But this is something I always thought was clever, and we'll talk about this. It's kind of a little bit of self-reflection here. So my backup anchor has a chain which is already tied off to the other end to the rod, which is hanging here. So the bitter end of the rod is not cleated off, and probably it should be if I'm in an anchored situation. Underway, I think that's fine, but when I come into port, I really ought to take that down and have that line ready to deploy. So that's one. The second thing is, I had 2 guys aboard yesterday, and they thought that was fine because that was easily cuttable if I have a knife available, and that's the question. Probably I'll retie that knot to make sure it's not all, kind of locked in place. And I have this giant pin passing through the shackle that holds the anchor up. And why I have a double shackle, there's a good reason for that, and I don't remember what it is. I think it was because I couldn't get that shackle off. But really it should be this shackle going straight to the swivel. This shackle should be removed altogether. But either way, the guys thought this would be kind of hard to remove in an emergency. You got this big old pin, which I thought was pretty straightforward, and you take that out. This pin needs a little bit of encouragement to come out. It was pretty stiff when we tried to take it out yesterday. So I'm going to change that situation. What the guys thought was just, instead of using a pin, get rid of that altogether and just tie it off. So I'm kind of interested in people's thoughts on that matter. You know, the pin kind of causes a bother here. You can see now I've got the rope lining up against it, and the fact that the rope is hard on the pin, and if you're dragging anchor, right now the rope doesn't have a lot of strain. But if you were dragging anchor, presumably this might be under heavy strain, holding so hard down on the pin that it's going to be very difficult to remove, which means you can't get the other anchor down. So there's that. Got to think about that today and take action tomorrow. That's the basic plan. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's getting that time of day where you start seeking cover from the sunshine. It's pretty intense. We're not going to get any clouds until much later, so anyway, I do as much as I can in the morning, I'll put it that way. So, what I did this morning so far was put, in this region is a third coat of varnish, up here coat number 2, and from here to here was the first coat of varnish. So the rails in general look kind of like that, you know, the grayed out teak wood, and it's not awful, it's not really turned to black yet, easily sanded off. And I'm just working my way around the boat. And I'm about to put this this line chafing guard back on. That's why Okay, so these are the new oars. They're really low quality stuff. They're made of wood, theoretically. Some kind of cheap wood. It's normal, made in China garbage, I would say. Probably not high quality stuff. It's not going to be made of cedar or some kind of wood that's water resistant. When I was talking to another guy yesterday who said he had the exact same oars, and he said that within 2 months of buying them, they failed in this way. He said, though, they developed cracks come working up the bottom of the oar. So I'm going to try to forestall that and make these things last a couple of years by wrapping these with fiberglass cloth and epoxying up to about here, and just to kind of hold this, give this more structural integrity, and somehow wrap some fiberglass cloth over the tip of the end, you know, to encapsulate the wood basically, because the paint, you know, is not going to last in this kind of weather and the heat. And I'm actually a little bit concerned that I've kind of thinned the amount of wood that's bearing the force by drilling a 3/8 inch hole, so I might wrap some epoxy cloth around this area as well, you know, just to try to strengthen that region a little bit. Anyway, it's not a hard job, it's not a critical job, but it is something I can do to help preserve these, make them last a little longer. I was unable to find replacement oars for the kind that broke, and the question is, I mean, if they broke and they've only been in service for a year, those cheap plastic ones, I mean, do you really want to buy like-for-like replacements? So I thought I probably could do better by buying wood ones. Okay, so this is my first crime against fiberglass and epoxy for the 2023 season. And that seems, I mean, in general, it seems okay, but at the tips, I didn't seem to do a very good job. So today's mission is to get these soft spots. I don't know if you can see that well. It's very difficult to see a damn camera. So here, some of the fabric is not adhered. So what we're going to do is mix up a very, very small batch of JB Weld. That's all I'm using. And I'm using this because I have to get rid of it anyway. It's been in the tubes, honestly, for 2.5 years, and it's about to just go off in the tubes and be useless. So I'm going to mix it up, and it has about a 20-minute pot time. And I'm just going to basically finger paint. I'm going to put on surgeon gloves, and I'm going to do some finger painting to kind of fill that gap in there with the JB Weld, and to make sure I smear all the areas not covered by cloth. It's very difficult for me anyway to get the fiberglass cloth to wrap around corners. I'm going to try to improve my skill set here. Oh my God, that's going to go. It's might look okay where there's a white base coat. So this is what I did, and we'll just have to see over the course of a year or so, see how this lasts. But I think Jared's boat is an old Hunter. Jeff lives on that boat with the flag, and that's an older Morgan. I think it's a 42 Morgan. They know they're on camera now. How you want to take it? Did it pass through like before? Yeah. Pass this time. I don't think I need to fully pass it. That right there. Okay. Perfect. You got about the right spot? Okay. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I made the cooler when I added a little bit. No, you're good. Le cooler. Por favor. Multicultural. Thank you. Well, that was on video. How'd you do that for? Right on camera too? Yeah. Outstanding, man. I appreciate that, man. If we're gonna have colossal fuck ups, let's put it on camera, man. Let it go way out there, pull it up so he's not banging into nothing. You're on camera there, buddy. That's good? Yeah, we good. I don't charge any extra. Yeah. Dude, that's why we don't cast off. If he wants to hang on to the line or something. You ready? Yeah. Tell your boat to stop rocking. Well, just jump down inside. Okay, you got it? Good? Well, I'm going on his boat. Yeah. You go to your boat, I'll go to his. See you later, Brian. See you, bud. Jared, see you? See you, Jared. Russ, take it easy, buddy. Take it easy, guys. See you next time. Yep. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I mean, it was been an interesting couple of days, to be honest, you know. And as I said in the video, I'm very happy to help anybody's boat that is in trouble. But one other guy, you know, who's a licensed captain, pointed out that you need to be very careful and very choosy. So if I had not known who Lionel or Michelle were, would I have gone to help them? And it's very possible that the answer is no, and I'll tell you why. Because suppose I jumped aboard their boat and I was unable to get it to, you know, stop dragging anchor, and we ended up hitting those boats in the marina, then I am now responsible for that, and that's the truth. There's another example down in the Sunset Bay Marina during the storms last year. I know some of their staff went out to capture some boats that had drifted loose, and they brought them into their own marina free of charge and tied them up to docks, but the boats ended up sinking anyway. And then that whole marina got sued because they should have just left well enough alone. And that's the rub. So you do need to be careful when you're messing around with other people's boats. And in the case of what happened this past week, now again, I know Lionel and Michelle, and I count them as good friends, and we've helped each other out as we need, and so I didn't have any issue with that, and I knew that they were stand-up people, and they would do the right thing. But that's something to consider, you know, the legal liability. If I had held a captain's license, you know, I can put my license at risk if I jump on somebody else's boat, and if I'm unable to get the engine started or get sails up to sail out of there or whatever, you know, now I'm responsible for it. So it almost would have been better to just let it go, and that's awful to say, you know, but now under maritime law, I believe, you're allowed to take actions to save your boat or save other boats. So it's kind of squishy stuff, and so just something to think about. Anyway, I'm going to close out the video. It's hot again, and I'm going to add a little bit at the end of this here to showing you my outboard motor. It's kind of hunting and engine space. I think it's just dirty fuel, and I think I need to just change out the fuel filter, which I haven't done yet, but just a little bit, and I appreciate any comments that you may have. So, guys, have a good one. Life is good down here in Fort Pierce, but please send a cold front with nice, cool, dry air. I can sure use that. Appreciate it. Bye. which is good. The problem right now is this damn motor. It stalled on me on the way back this morning. I went over to the marina, and on the way back it just quit. And of course I didn't have my oars with me, so I just finished drilling the hole in these, and I have a new set of oars, so I do have that. But the motor was stumbling, so I'm going to start the engine and you can listen and just tell me what you think. Listen for it. It stumbles, see? And at any rate, the question is, what's wrong with my motor? If anybody has any thoughts, let me know.